Welcome to Brandland. I am your host, Garrett Justice, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. We have with us David Brier, the author of Brand Intervention, 33 Steps to Transform the Brand You Have into the Brand You Need. He's also the owner and chief Gravity Defyer at DBD International. David, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you here. Did I get that official title right?
You got so much right. The list is too long for me to even cover it all.
That's great. That's great. Well, how are things in your neck of the woods today?
Well, things are very, very good. Obviously, it's a very interesting time that we're all in. But besides that distraction, things are actually great. Projects are great, and anyway, I'm super excited because as an entrepreneur, I think we all love a little bit of like things to be shaken up, a little challenge we can overcome.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate that too. Before we jump into this a little bit, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about your background and the amazing work that you and your team is doing at DBD International?
Totally. Well, basically, for those that don't know me, I'm a native New Yorker, born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens. And then, I started my career in Manhattan after, completing my schooling at School of Visual Arts in Manhattan on 23rd Street on the East Side. And so, started out as a logo designer, but over the course of, and literally this year I've been doing this for 40 years. And wow. I know that means I started when I was 3. And so, and so basically it was just, there's always been a love affair of doing things that really woke people up. And, it started out specifically on design, and then it really started to embrace into the story and all of the aspects that a client or a customer would come into contact with. So it wasn't just how did it look, but how did it sound, and into whether it's video stories or just the language itself. What's the personality? And that's really a lot of what happens these days, because to stay relevant today, you've got to have a voice that is unmistakable, that it does not blend in and sort of sounds like everybody else. And it's just bang, a great example is like, I think you and I talked about like Duluth Trading is, I think I often cite that because for those that are familiar with it, that voice. It's like, well, here's Duluth Trading, and you got that grizzly voice, and you got the illustrations, and they're 15-second commercials, and you don't confuse it with anyone else. And that's the thing I love about branding, is to be able to take something that could be ordinary and really find the jewels that make it shine.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Yeah, I love the Duluth Trading connection too. I lived in Minneapolis for a few years. I know you're up in Wisconsin, so love those, local northern Midwest connections there too, right?
Exactly.
Well, so for those of you who haven't heard of David Brier before, I don't know, are you living under a rock or something like? This guy is amazing. Tons of accolades, and when it comes to branding and rebranding, and his book, like I mentioned before, Brand Intervention, was just published just a few years ago. I just want to put in a plug for how awesome of a read that is. Some really great material on brand building. I have a copy sitting on my desk at work, and I refer to it, regularly. It's been there since, a few years ago when, you sent me one of those copies right when it came out. So, one of the things I think is so cool about that book, in addition to the awesome content, is you had Damon John, the FUBU founder and star of ABC's Shark Tank, write the foreword for that book. So I'm curious, tell me a little bit more about how you made that happen and what was some of that inspiration for the book?
Well, see, that's an interesting story, because at the time, so I think this year is the 10th year of Shark Tank. The first couple of years of Shark Tank, before it kind of became really like mainstream, it was a surprise hit. People were like, a show on investors. And I think it was Friday nights too, or it was Friday nights or Sunday nights. It was like a night when there was never a breakout hit on that night. And so they kind of everything was unexpected, and it was this surprise hit. My wife and I were amazing fans of the show. I was always interested in the interaction, not only between what was the pitch like to the investors and the sharks, but what was the cross into negotiations. So no, that's a lousy deal. I'm going to do this, and seeing how they would actually, make it a profitable and successful company. Well, I had written at the time I had my Fast Company column. And so I wrote an article that was just simply my observations. What are the 4 things that what's the difference between the ones that go into the tank, and they don't get like eaten alive, right? They don't like come out like, oh, there's blood in the water, right? And so, and they get a deal. And what was the difference between the ones that survived and succeeded and the ones that just like perished, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote an article, and it was just from myself. It wasn't done as a ploy to get anyone's attention. I just was like, hey, you know what? This is, as a person in branding and an entrepreneur, this is the stuff I'm observing. This is what I see. Within 2 days, Damon, who I did not know at the time, tweeted, "This is the best article ever written on Shark Tank, period." And I was like, yeah. And of course, I retweeted it, and I then thanked him. He replied back. I mean, and I could tell it was Damon. It was quick, and it was him. It wasn't some assistant. And I immediately, my creative juices went into overdrive, and I was like, what can we do here? I said, I want to do a blog interview with Damon. That was immediately where I said, that would be cool. Let's connect. Who knows where this could go? And so I thought, what would be a title? Oh, that would be a cool title. That would actually make an amazing slogan. Then I thought of something, and I said, that would make an amazing slogan for Damon. So I said, Damon, I've got it. I've got a great slogan for you. You need and deserve a great slogan. He goes, cool, tell me. And I said, a Damon is a girl's best friend. And he goes, love it. I said, and this all just literally via tweet messaging. And so we're just going back and forth. And I said, let's do like an interview. And that was the beginning of how our relationship happened. It was exceedingly organic. And similarly, the same thing happened with, for those of you that are listening, Claude Silver, who works in Gary Vaynerchuk's office. She's the number 2 person in VaynerMedia, right? Gary is like out there in the world, the front-facing dude. She's inside making sure the culture is, fortified and supported. And there's a real beautiful energy they have. Anyway, so a similar thing happened with her, where I just had seen something of hers. I was so moved by what I saw. I simply sent her a message, and like 3-4 days later, I never expected to hear back. I simply wanted to say, by the way, what you're doing in the world is amazing. And I just really wanted to let you know that I think this is incredible. I mean, I'd cited some things that I read of hers and this, and that, the other. I never expected to hear back. It was like it. I just wanted her to know that. 3-4 days later, bam, came back again. And we've since become really, 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 really tight friends, to the point where I'll be able to share some news with you in the not too distant future of something exciting that we're collaborating on. So
cool.
That's just like,
love it.
Happens.
Love it. Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, I love hearing those stories about, you just going out on a limb and reaching out and connecting with the real people that, we see so often, and having that real connection and being able to add value for them and them add value for you. So cool. I love it. Cool. Yep. Well, let's transition a little bit. I want to jump into our topic today. I'm really excited to get into this because I know, you have this background in branding and rebranding. And, you said at the beginning today, it's been 40 years now you've been doing this, and you've worked with so many different companies helping develop their brands, either for the first time or going through a rebrand. And I know you've been able to see just firsthand the things that either help companies become strong, consistent brands, or on the flip side, those things that might trip them up or prevent them from being able to do that. So, as we were talking about this a little bit before the show, I love that you used the phrase overlooked gremlins as the things that kind of can trip brands up. Yeah. So on that note, just to dive in real quick to our topic, what's the most common overlooked gremlin that really cripples brands and prevents them from becoming strong and consistent? As you've worked with all of these companies over the years, what's that one overlooked gremlin that you've noticed most common?
They actually lack really the core fundamental of what's our brand, what's our role in the world, not what are our features, not what are we selling, not here's the latest greatest product line, right? No, it's like that's all an outcome of this thing that oftentimes isn't articulated, which is what's the nucleus of our brand? What's our role in the world? Because if you lack that, what ends up happening is you end up making cosmetic decisions. You end up making, let's do a promotion to move product or move service, or let's do this, or let's do that. Then you wonder why nobody really knows exactly what your brand stands for. Because now, like for example, with what you guys provide to businesses, allowing them to have the consistency, you're never going to quite have the consistency if they're just kind of like coloring by number or doing templates, right? If they actually get, oh, we're about simplification, or we're about, a lean, mean answer to this problem, or here's what everybody else is doing, and they're really, they're noisy or not organized, or this or that, or they're very clunky and not smooth. And if you really go, okay, here's the outer, the macro, and here's us, the micro, here's our role. And if you have that well articulated, you can then now go through the motions because you get why you're doing it. So it doesn't just become a tactical implementation, which you have these incredible tools to do that. But if people don't get why are we doing it in the first place, why are we doing this in this way? I mean, because otherwise, if you don't have that ownership mentally, it's always going to be someone else's idea, or these are the rules that we have to follow, or this is the color scheme, or these are the fonts, and this is the that, and that's the that, and it always remains someone else's idea. To the extent that it remains someone else's idea, you have robots. You don't want robots. You want people with initiative. You want people with ownership, and that's why it becomes this kind of like gremlin that could literally eat your organization from the inside out because you lacked clarity on what the nucleus is.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit before in the past, but at Lucidpress, we have refreshed our brand recently. It wasn't a full rebrand, but we kind of refreshed it, in the last year. And what I love about going through that process again and just really tightening it up is you have a yardstick to measure creative work against as you go forward. I think that's what's been so valuable. As you really tighten that up and you get everyone on the same page, then it's not just, does this look good or not? And it's people's opinions, but you have this yardstick, something to compare against. And so, yeah, I love that. So moving along a little bit, I mean, I know you mentioned, the core fundamentals that really form the nucleus of a brand. What are some examples of core fundamentals for a lot of brands?
Well, it's really it's like, why are we, you need to have a clear understanding. Why are we doing what we're doing? Why us versus anyone else? And surface answers, useless answers such as, well, we're better, we're cheaper, we have more bells and whistles than them. No, those are very superficial. Those really haven't dug. It's like, okay, great. That's a result of you having something. That's a result of something here in the center of it all. So you want to really isolate why are we doing, or do we want to, what's the dent we want to leave in the universe? And so it's getting really clear on that, because then from there, so much clarity goes through the organization. Everyone knows why they're doing what they're doing. Everyone understands these are why these are our colors. These are why we have the design look and feel. This is why we have the vibe and the personality that we have. Because it's to serve that nucleus. See, I think that's the thing that's probably the biggest missing ingredient in terms of understanding all of these tools that we manage every day, that are the obvious frontline soldiers of the brand that are out there, and the obvious things. Those are there to serve the brand and why we exist. They don't define the brand, they serve the brand. And that's the difference. It's such an important nuance that is not, I don't think it's understood well enough. If you understand that those are there to serve, you have a totally different responsibility level than just going, okay, we do it this way, but we don't quite know why.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think that's a great point. Understanding that why of the brand, is just so crucial for every company, and it might have nothing to do with your core products or services, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I
Cool.
mean, it's always fascinating because companies lack so often the impartiality. They're so close to it. I kind of call it they've drunk their own Kool-Aid too much, or they're so close to it. It's kind of like their own baby. It's like, and you go, It's the most beautiful baby. It's like, what do you think of it? It's like, well, do you want me to comment on its third eye or its fourth ear? You know, and you go, you know, it's a little kind of like there's something a little different about this baby. Can we talk about that, right? And so, you know, that there's a love affair that kind of can blind companies a lot. And oftentimes it's that proximity. They don't have the I call it passionate impartiality. If you, and the real expert who can provide value can provide that passionate impartiality. It's like, that's amazing. Yes. And here's why. And by the way, that other thing that's right next to it is remarkably stupid. And if you don't freaking cut ties with that right now, you know, this is the problem that you're going to encounter. But that kind of candor is invaluable.
I love that. So, you know, diving into that a little bit deeper, I'm curious then, like what can organizations do to really just, you know, identify what's unique about their brand? How do they get to that why?
Oh, it's a deep question. I'm going to try and think how I can keep it short and simple. Put it this way. One of the ways that I do it is I have some like kind of what I call $64,000 questions. One being, why should anybody care about what we're offering in the world? We being the company, the client. Why should anybody actually care? And usually the first answers to that question are the stupid ones, all right? They're just the stupid ones. It's kind of like doing a detox, you know, all the crap is going to come out first before you feel better, you know? So that's really what happens is like, you go, why? Well, because we're blah. Oftentimes the answers are, well, we're blank and we're blank and we're blank and we're blank and we're blank. What the first thing that is the big red flag right there is every one of those sentences is starting with we. It's not about you. It's about them, your customers, your prospects. I mean, that right there is your little red flag that so many overlook. Well, we this and we this and we this and we this and, you know, blood, sweat, tears. We have wounds and scars and we've lost limbs and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, it's like, thank you for talking about you for the last 20 minutes. Now, what about your customer? Why is this going to matter to them? Because it's their values. Because the greatest brands that we all admire in the world, the greatest brands, take any one of them, whether you're talking about Apple or Nike, or you're talking about Virgin or whatever like that, they started out because those were already passionate consumers of the thing that they ended up creating, but nobody was creating it and solving the problems that they saw as customers. You know, Phil Knight, I mean, he was, you know, total sports enthusiast, bang, you know, created Nike. Steve Jobs, a complete junkie on experience, you know, cutting out the fluff. That experience is an aesthetic to the thing. So, you know, supporting the creative urges in people. You know, I mean, so that's the thing. I mean, and FUBU, look, Damon John, perfect. You know, it's like he was that customer, that sort of urban. It's like, I don't have anything nobody's making anything for me, right? For me to wear. So you look at the greatest companies, they already were representative of the values of their customers. They now just flipped into the role of going, no one is leading this pack. I'm going to step in.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's excellent insight. You know, I want to go back real quick to one of the things that you said, you know, a few minutes ago too, in our conversation about how all of those things that you create are there to serve the brand. You know, and when you think about, you know, the messaging, the content that gets created across the organization, you know, how does a lack of those fundamentals that we talked about, how can that lead to some of those things being off brand? Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Oh, it's easy. I mean, the bottom line is, well, it's like anything. I mean, what's the difference? Let's take a little bigger context to answer that fully. What's the difference between a great employee and a lousy employee, or a great leader and a lousy leader? The difference is the great leader and the great employee own what the company is about. It's not someone else's idea. It's not, the great leader isn't doing something, oh, that's because so-and-so said I should do it. They have a sort of innate sense of, oh, I get it. I am here to serve the culture of my company, right? I'm here to provide that. And it's an ownership and a recognition of that. The lack of recognition opens the door to just being Well, it's someone else's idea. And if someone else now comes along, because if you're just following someone else's idea, what's going to happen? Well, there's going to be a new bestseller or a new guru next week. So they're going to say something. Everyone's going to go, oh, have you heard so-and-so? They said, if you just kind of just stand by the water cooler for 15 minutes every hour, you're going to like really inspire everybody because they'll know that you're properly hydrated. You know what I mean? I mean, it becomes dumb. So it's that ownership point. That's what happens. And if you don't have that ownership point, what's going to happen? It's like, well, we're going to do this, or we're going to do this, or someone else says people and leaders will be subject to whatever ways the winds blow. And, oh, this is this year's colors. Let's change our corporate colors to that because all of a sudden Pantone says these are the colors for this year. And, oh, these are cool fonts to be used. We want to appear cool. Are you a cool brand? You may not even be a cool brand. You may be an ultra conservative, hardcore brand. And maybe that's like the most valuable thing that you could provide. So if you'll be subject to the winds of change if you don't have that ownership. And those are the kinds of things that can undermine it. So you'll be off brand all the time because you'll be kind of whatever. And in terms of how you look, how you sound, the values that you present to the world. Are we offering this deal? Are we offering that deal? Are we What's our thing? And so, and that even gets into the manufacturing and the culture. How do people treat one another? Do we skimp on the important details? I mean, why is it that people are willing to pay what they pay for Apple products? I mean, even when we get our box home and we open it, right? And it fits perfectly and it's not flimsy. I mean, it's like, is that by accident? No, it's not. That's an ownership point. They didn't forget that after the sale, there's still an experience to be had.
Yeah.
Right. And so those are some of the points that happen.
Yeah, I love that. I think that, especially that's applicable for not only leaders, but everyone else across the organization. When you can empower them with an understanding of who you are as a brand, then it's easier for them to make decisions. Even someone down the line of, should we spend more on this packaging or not? Or how, support might answer the phone or whatever it is. So yeah. Love that. Love that thought. Well, I mean, David, this has been awesome today. I know we're about out of time today, but I just as we wrap it up here, what's a tangible step that you'd recommend listeners take back to their businesses from what we've discussed today?
Well, one is there something that exists that everyone in the organization can go to go, yes, this is our brand. Does the leadership have a clear understanding of the brand? If that's missing, it would be a disservice to allow it to continue. So I would say the thing to do is, they can certainly grab a copy of Brand Intervention. That would be immensely, immensely helpful to really, because just to give it context, I wrote that after discovering at the time when I first started writing the book, there were 6,500 books that I found on Amazon that were on branding. Today, you Google it today or go on Amazon today, it's over 10,000 books on branding. And by the way, if you and I were to start, if we were to say, hey, why don't you and I start the Garrett and David book reading club? Let's read one branding book a day. It would take us over 24 years to read all of those.
Wow.
Just crazy. So I would say, I would definitely grab the book. They could certainly reach out to me on LinkedIn. They could reach out to me. They could visit my site, risingabovethenoise.com, RISING, risingabovethenoise.com, because there's a lot of good content. You'll find that there are ways to go about it, and I cover so many of those in the content and the articles and various things. That's the key thing. Go back. And if you're finding that people are vacillating, here's your kind of like your red flags. If everyone's talking about we, and if they're trying to figure out what promotion, and because you really want to separate out, marketing departments have a function, but marketing department is there to serve the brand. They aren't brand developers. And that's one thing that gets awfully confused a lot of times. Oh, we gotta freshen up our brand. Let's go to marketing. No. That's not marketing's job. They don't have the breadth of experience nor the impartiality necessary to create a brand. So the thing is, you need to bring in someone like myself, not even someone like myself, because there isn't anyone like me. Just call me up. That's the simple thing. But the thing is you want someone to come in and provide that objective look and go, okay, here's what's missing. And by putting that in place, you will streamline so much, because all of the questions and the daily things and the this and the wonderings and the changes and let's go this way this week and let's go that week, that next week, that stuff will quiet down because you'll have a stable point of departure. And that's the thing I would say. If you're finding just knock it down, go, okay, we're missing something.
Yeah.
Recognize, that's the first point of recognition. We are missing something. Let's find the missing thing, get that in place, and you will find, with it done right, man, it will change so much, so much.
Love it. Thank you so much. I mean, this has been super informative today. We really appreciate you spending some time with us and sharing your knowledge. And again, just as we close out, I know you mentioned your website. What's the best way for listeners to stay connected with you? If they have other questions in the future, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, LinkedIn is a great way. With all the social platforms, it's one of the most reliable. All the others kind of like, I find messages 2 months later from people send me something via Twitter or something via Instagram, whatever. LinkedIn is very good. Or just, go to risingabovethe.noise.com. There's a free ebook that you can download. They'll automatically, get subscribed to that. And you can certainly reach out to me. And definitely, but if it's timely, LinkedIn is great because I'll see the messages, I get the messages, and I go boom, and then we can actually just dialogue and get you set up correctly. Because man, I'll tell you, there's a lot of wasted time, a lot of lost money that happens these days because of these mistakes. Because once they get this right and they use like the tools that you provide to the world, man, they become a lean, mean marketing machine.
Yeah, excellent. Well, David, again, thank you so much. This has been excellent. It's been great just diving in and understanding a little bit of that knowledge that I know you have about brand building. So again, thank you for taking the time to join this episode today.
No question, man. My pleasure. And just, hey, keep it shining, dude.
Thanks.